Okay, this video has to do with content goal number 9, and I want to pull up the actual content goal. Here we go. And follow along if you would, because I want you to get the understanding. Think of this as kind of your textbook area, okay? And I want to get to the understanding, then we'll get to the notes. So, constitutional government in the United States has changed over time as a result of the amendments to the U.S. Constitution, Supreme Court decisions, legislation, and informal practices. All right, so this first paragraph has to do with the operation, and we have already seen this when we looked at the articles, but let's go over it. The operation of government in the United States takes place within the framework provided by the U.S. Constitution. However, the U.S. Constitution has been amended, interpreted, and implemented in a variety of ways. I want you to understand, and I'm going to pull up the notes here real quick, that what we're talking about here, number one, is Constitution is the rule book that the federal government must follow. Even the state governments must follow it. So it's the rule book that the government must follow. Think of it as, if you want to think of it as the government's handbook. You know, we have a student handbook. I have a staff handbook. This is their handbook. They have to follow the Constitution. Okay, so, excuse me. All right, so back to that. So that's basically what we're saying here, and that it can be amended. Right? We've already seen that. Now, they are going to talk about, though, the process. The process for formally amending the U.S. Constitution are outlined in the document. Constitutional amendments have added to, modified, replaced, and or voided provisions of the original document and previous amendments. All right, so what we're talking about, excuse me, is this piece right here. So this portion that you see here, this should be what you're adding to your notes outside. Okay, so you should already have that the Constitution is the rule book. Now add to this, both houses pass by a 2/3 vote a proposed amendment, which is then sent to the states for ratification, meaning then they have to approve or not by the state legislature or conventions in the state. Now, many of you, I know when I did these originally, you thought about ratification had to be only 9 states. Well, 9 states for the ratification of the Constitution. But now we're talking about amendments. Both houses must pass by 2/3 vote a proposal which is then sent to the states for ratification by the state legislature or by convention in the states. Okay? An amendment is ratified when 3/4 of the states, that's 38 states, approve. Okay? So when this, and if you want to put that in there, it wouldn't be hateful, 38 states have to actually approve. Okay? So that's your second portion on your notes. All right? Now going back, then we're looking at the U.S. Supreme Court. So Congress takes care of the amendments and then the states vote on it. The Supreme Court then, in deciding cases brought before it, has frequently interpreted provisions of the U.S. Constitution to clarify and extend their meanings with its power of judicial review. And I would like for you to go in and highlight this. Okay? You can bold it. You can even go ahead and highlight it. I can't get to the highlighter because of the recording in there. But highlight judicial review. Okay, so with its power of judicial review, the Supreme Court has also declared actions of branches and of the states to be unconstitutional. The U.S. Congress, in creating legislation, has provided details which build upon the framework of the Constitution. For example, Civil Rights Acts and Voting Rights Acts have provided specific directions to promote constitutional principles. We looked at those rights and those voting rights and giving that, identifying what needed to be strengthened for voting rights, especially for minorities and people with disabilities. All of those are extremely important. Now for your notes, what I would like for you to do, and let me go to this, talk about this. The U.S. Supreme, so note this, the U.S. Supreme Court frequently interprets provisions, parts of the Constitution, to clarify and extend its meaning, okay? Those are the acts as well as like for the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as well as amendments. The court, through judicial review, has also declared, excuse me, also declare actions of branches and of states to be unconstitutional, meaning they get to look through, they're kind of the principal, if you will, and looking at the, or the administration looking at the handbook, is it all correct? And this is what the Supreme Court does. It looks at the laws and the amendments to make sure they are correct. Okay, the court, through judicial review, also declared actions of branches and states to be unconstitutional. The Congress, in creating legislation, has provided details needed to support the principles of the Constitution. Again, the Congress providing those acts, providing all of that information to support the amendments that supported the rights of individuals, particularly minorities, and those who have disabilities. Okay, now let's go back. Now, this idea of judicial review, then, I also reinforced by showing you the movie Gideon's Trumpet. Right there was a perfect example of someone, in this case an individual. Most of the times it's Congress that does this, but an individual identifying a wrong and going to the Supreme Court, and of course the Supreme Court agreeing. And as a result, a sweeping change took place all over the United States, where once very few people who were going for state crimes were not able to get attorneys unless it was a capital crime. In this case now, everybody has the right to an attorney. Okay, big deal, very big deal. All right, and then finally, looking at informal practices also have changed how constitutional government is implemented in the United States. These practices are related to provisions of the Constitution, but venture into areas not specifically addressed in the Constitution. For example, legislative oversight of executive branch grew in part out of Congress' need for information to help draft new information. So these informal practices can look like individuals with ideas. It can be the political parties who help with identifying the needs of the government. And it can come from the media. It can, like I said, come from individual people. But they are all informal practices that help influence your government. Okay, so that ends your notes for Content Goal 9. So once you have completed those, please upload.